Gaurav, as we look at these visuals of him receiving first aid, thankfully that some people were able to provide to him. And now the emergency aid officials at this point as well, the chopper on location there in New York where he was about to deliver a lecture. That did not happen. But it's only worth imagining that someone offended with a writer for having written a book that has sold copies across the world. He's a renowned author. And then someone on stage on a moment like this goes up to him, starts to punch and stab him.
And stab him repeatedly is what initial reports seem to indicate. And in just a moment, we'll try and show you, that partition. So we've tried to kind of zero in and show you the place where the stabbing took place, how he collapsed, how people rushed to his assistance, and how the assailant was detained. And this is that partition, white partition, that has multiple bloodstains on it. The motive for this murderous assault is a subject of investigation. Of course, amid speculation that is it linked to the fatwa that was issued against him way back in the 1980s, 1988, 89 is where these fatwas came after satanic verses, and his book in fact was banned in several countries.
Yes.
There were restrictions on his book even in India because of the tension it caused for the contents, and the free speech versus suitable restrictions on free speech. That debate has been on for quite some time, but this is where he was to speak at an auditorium, and you can look the kind of people who were there and the shock on their faces the moment they witnessed the stabbing. Some of the elderly, tried to rush out. The security forces, they rushed in. Some tried to give him, tried to look after him immediately to see how bad was he injured. And then the police moved in, and the assailant has been detained. So now it is a matter of investigation. What was the cause? And what kind of security did Salman Rushdie have? What kind of security should writers like him actually get in the wake of fatwas that actually date back decades, Pooja?
And the attempts clearly to cause fear among even the most renowned authors who can be facing such attempts. It's also important to mention here, as Gaurav has also just said, that on the stage, Salman Rushdie was being introduced at the moment when this attacker from the audience jumped onto the stage and started to punch and stab him repeatedly till the organizers managed to get Salman Rushdie to safety, give him first aid, and then the attacker was also apprehended. We're also being told, as from the visuals is visible, there was blood splatter that can be seen on the stage and also close to the chair where the author was sitting, and he was just about to give a speech as well. This was in New York. This was the CHQ 2022 event. And so strange that to talk about at that moment for writers who need asylum, who need help, who need the support of the writers community, this happens to the Booker Prize winner, 75-year-old Salman Rushdie. Talking about the book as well, it is also important to mention it's easily offended so many people for 34 years. Rather than try to understand the book intellectually, Gaurav, to try and get into a discussion of an intellectual part, it's just led to death threats, fatwas, one by one against him. And as Gaurav Sawant is telling us about what precisely has happened, take a look closely at the visuals. Two visuals that we are showing to you. One, exactly seconds after the incident that took place, Salman Rushdie was being introduced and he was set to deliver a lecture on stage. A young man whose visuals have also now come forth. It's been confirmed. Identity not yet known. So we do not know who is this individual, what happened to him, why did he suddenly jump from the audience and continue to stab and punch before he was apprehended. The visuals on your screen is the immediate first aid that was being given to him by the organizers and the attendees, the participants at the event, the audience in complete shock. The other visual has just come about a few minutes ago. The emergency medical professionals there arriving with a chopper. Salman Rushdie, who's received injuries, was given a basic first aid. Thankfully, there were officials present at that moment for that. He's now being taken in that chopper to the nearby hospital as well. We'll try and confirm to you about the health condition. Remember, Salman Rushdie is no ordinary writer. He's a Booker Prize winner. He started with Midnight's Children in 1981. The book sold 1 million copies. Over 1 million copies in the United Kingdom alone, apart from how it was received across the world. But it was actually just about 3 to 4 years later when the Satanic Verses was released, And slowly and steadily, the word about the book started to go around, and it was specifically the Muslim conservatives who got offended and started to issue fatwa, death threats, bounty on Salman Rushdie, but he was never deterred for it. Gaurav Sawant continues to be with us. Now, Gaurav, basic first aid given to him, the young man apprehended, Salman Rushdie being assisted and taken to the nearby hospital. But the fact is, it must be a shocking incident at that moment for a normal lecture to continue, for asylum of writers, and then a murder attempt.
You know, so his condition, there are conflicting reports. Some seem to indicate, at least initial eyewitness reports seem to indicate that he wasn't grievously injured. But when you look at these images, this is a medical evacuation helicopter which was rushed in after Salman Rushdie was stabbed. And when you look at this image, you know, there's a medvac that is taking place. Ambulance, fire brigade, emergency services, all there as he is wheeled onto in this you know, stretcher and taken for state medical evacuation helicopter for medical attention. So we're still waiting to hear from doctors. We're waiting to hear from reports. Initial reports did seem to indicate that the stab injuries were not grievous, but then that may just have been an initial report. It's only after doctors examine him and see, because apparently these are multiple stab wounds and not just a single stab wounds. Also, given the fact that blood was splattered on that wall behind, that partition, white partition wall behind, it remains to be seen how grievously was he injured, and that perhaps after the initial you know, care is given to him, he'll be taken to the hospital, and only there doctors will be able to tell us. So two things: it's his medical report that we are waiting for, and for the police to give us more details about what the motive, what the cause for this murderous assault on author Salman Rushdie was, Pooja.